Hello Year 7s. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about ratio and rates. Our learning objectives are to know the meaning of the term ratio and rate and to be able to simplify ratio and rates. So let's begin by talking about what is a ratio. So a ratio, let me get out my highlighter, a ratio shows the relationship between two or more numbers or quantities measured in the same unit. This year, we're only going to be focusing on two numbers or quantities measured in the same unit. If each value in a ratio is multiplied or divided by the same number, an equivalent ratio is formed. So let's just look at a few examples here. Here we have one yellow square to three blue squares. So the way we write that is 1.3. The ratio is one yellow to three blue squares. Notice that we're dealing with the same unit here. We're talking about squares, and we're just writing it like this. Nothing too scary here. If we were to go for something a little bit different, this time we have 1, 2, 3 yellow squares and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 blue squares. So 3 yellow squares to 9 blue squares. Now, as you can read here, we can simplify the ratio by multiplying or dividing by the same number. So I can go, well, 3 divided by 3 is 1. Now, if I divide this side by 3, I have to divide this side by 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3. So what I've done here is I've divided both these numbers by the highest common factor to get the simplified version. So the ratio is 1 yellow square to 3 blue squares. So these are the same ratio. Now, hopefully you can notice something very, very interesting here. And that is, you've seen this before. I could write this ratio right here like this, 3 over 9. And if I wanted to simplify it, well, I could divide them both by their highest common factor of 3. So divide this by 3. Now, if I divide the top by 3, I must divide the bottom. Whatever I do to the top, I must do to the bottom. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. 9 divided by 3 is 3. So that means I'm going to end up with 1 over 3. And that right there is the same as 1.3. So as you can see, this is just fractions. Ratios are really no different. Just as we can create an equivalent and simplified fraction by dividing by the same number, we can so do with ratios. So nothing different, nothing scary here at all. So let's now just go through a few examples in which we are going to write the ratio in its simplest form. So here we have 9 and 27. The first thing that we're going to do is to say, well, the highest common factor of 9 and 27 is 9. So therefore, we're going to divide both numbers by 9. So just as we divide the top and bottom of a fraction by the same number, when we've got a ratio, we say, well, if I'm going to divide this one by 9, I'm going to divide this one by 9. And then I'd go 9 divided by 9 is 1, and 27 divided by 9 is 3. And that would be our answer. We get a highlighter and we can give that a highlight. I also want you to really appreciate that we've done this before. 9.27 could be written like this. And we could say, well, both of those are divisible by 9. So I would go divide that by 9 to make 1, divide that by 9 to make 3. So we're going to get 1 over 3, which is this. We've done this before. There's nothing different here at all. We come over here. We go 4, 20. What is my highest common factor here? It's 4. So if I divide this side by 4, I must divide this side by 4. Then I'm going to go 4 divided by 4 is 1, 20 divided by 4 is 5. And that's going to be my simplified ratio. And just so you're all super clear with it, we could also use this notation to represent what we're doing. We're starting with 4 over 20. I'm dividing this by 4 to make it 1. I'm dividing this by 4 to make it 5, which means we're going to end up with 1 over 5, which is 1.5. And as you can see very clearly, this is the same thing as this. Okay, let's keep on going, and we're going to do this one now. So we have 60 and 24. So I might even just purely use my fraction notation here if you just prefer that. So we can go, we have 60, 24. Both of those are divisible by 12. I can divide this by 12. I can divide this by 12. 24 divided by 12 is going to be 2. Oh, that should be a 12 there. And 60 divided by 12 is going to be 5. So that means I'm going to end up with 5 over 2, which is the same thing as 5.2. Perfect, and that is going to be our answer. But perhaps you want to do it the other way, just kind of keeping it in this notation. 35 and 30, the highest common factor there is going to be 5. I'm going to divide by 5 here. I'm going to divide by 5 here. So whatever I do to this side, I must do to that side. 35 divided by 5 is going to be 7. 30 divided by 5 is going to be 6. And there we go, we're finished. So you just need to be comfortable with, ratios are no different to fractions. We're not doing anything different here. Okay, let's keep on going. And let's now talk about what is a rate. So rates compare quantities measured in different units. So ratios were the same units, rates are different units. So every rate has a unit that compares two quantities. So the rate that you're probably most familiar with is speed, because speed compares distance and time. So when you're in the car, you think of your speed in terms of kilometers per hour, and we could write it like this. Or when you're running, you might measure your speed as meters per second. So two different units. So you've got a distance and you've got a time. So the most important thing is rates is two different units. So let's go about simplifying some rates here. Here we have someone who is texting 48 words in 3 minutes. I could write this like this. It's going to be 48 words for 3 minutes. So I've written in that notation. If I now want to simplify this, I simply use the same thing I was doing before. What's my highest common factor of 48 and 3? It's going to be 3. So I'm going to divide this side by 3. And if I do that to that side, I must do it to this side. I'm going to divide this side by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and that's 1 minute. 48 divided by 3 is 16 words. So that means what we're doing here is we're typing 16 words every 1 minute. So every 1 minute, I'm texting 16 words. Now, we actually don't have to put that 1 there. What we just do is we say this is 16 words / minute. And that would be our final answer there. 16 words a minute. We don't have to put the 1 there. They're the same thing, but we just don't do it. 16 words a minute. Now, you might also like to think about this in terms of our fraction notation, in which we have 48 words over 3 minutes. And then I would say, well, my highest common factor is 3, so I'm dividing that by 3 to make that 1. I'm dividing this by 3 to make it 16. So that means I'm going to end up with 16 words over 1 minute, which is going to be simply 16 words a minute. We're doing the same thing. Nothing is scary there at all. All right, let's give that a highlight and let's go over here. So here, what we're doing is we're running 160 meters in 20 seconds. So what we could say is, let's just use this notation. If you want to use that notation, feel free. But I much prefer this one for some reason. So if we're running 160 meters in 20 seconds, I would say, well, we've got 160 meters and we're running it in 20 seconds. I can divide those both by 20. Or if I wanted to, I could say I got a 0 there and I've got a 0 there. They both die. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 16 divided by 2 is 8. So that means what we're running here is 8 meters every 1 second. And you'd say that this is 8 meters a second. Perfect. And that would be our answer. Now, there's something very, very important about both of these answers. And that is that our second number is 1. So here it was 16 words per 1 minute. Here you're traveling 8 meters per 1 second. And whenever we've got 1 as our second number or as our denominator, what we call this is a unit rate. A unit rate. So let's now talk about what a unit rate is. A unit rate is the ratio of two measurements in which the second term, the denominator, is 1. Okay, that's a super duper important statement right there. Now, why is the unit rate so important to us? The reason why is because it allows for comparisons. So here's a question which says, which car is traveling faster? Our blue car is going 120 kilometers every 3 hours, while our orange car is traveling 150 kilometers every 5 hours. Now, at the moment, it's hard to figure out which one's going faster. But by figuring out what our unit rate is, we can easily find which one's going faster. So that means we're going to find the unit rate, which is when our second term is 1. So instead of dealing with 3 hours, we're going to find out how far it's traveling in 1 hour. So too for this one. So how are we going to do that? We need to turn 3 into 1. Well, to do that, what do? We just simply divide by 3. Now, if I divide this number by 3, I must divide this number by 3. 3 divided by 3 is going to be 1, so 1 hour. And 120 divided by 3 is going to be 40, so 40 kilometers. So just like that, we have found out that this car is traveling 40 kilometers every 1 hour. We would write that as 40 kilometers an hour. We don't have to put the 1 there. Now, as you can see here up in our definition, it also says the denominator. Why does it say that? Another way I could write this ratio right here of 120 kilometers, 3 hours, is I could write it like this. I could write it as 120 km over 3 hours. Now, what I'm doing is trying to make my denominator 1. Exactly the same process. So that means I'm going to divide this by 3, and I'm going to divide this by 3. Remembering, whatever I do to my denominator, I must do to my numerator. Just like over here, whatever I did to this number, I had to do to this number. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 120 divided by 3 is 40. So our new fraction is going to be 40 km over 1 hour, which is 40 kilometers an hour. So 40 kilometers an hour. So I'm just showing you another way you can approach it, another way you can think about it, and really linking the fact that ratio, rates, and fractions, they're all kind of the same thing. Perfect. That's our answer to the first one. Let's now figure out what the unit rate for the orange car is. So again, I want to make my second term, which is the denominator, 1. Well, in order to make 5 1, I'm going to have to divide it by 5. If I divide this number by 5, I must divide this number by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1, so it's going to be 1 hour. 150 divided by 5 is going to be, what's it going to be? 30. It's going to be 30, so 30 kilometers, just like that. So that means this car is traveling 30 kilometers every hour. So in 1 hour, it travels 30 kilometers. Now, if I wanted to, and I might do it, remember, I can write this as a fraction. It will be, let's get a thicker pen. It's going to be 150 over 5. If I want to figure out what my unit rate is going to be, I'm going to have to make sure that my denominator is 1. So that means I'm going to divide it by 5. I'm going to divide this by 5 as well, because I need to do the same to the top to the bottom. So that means I'm going to end up with a 1 here. 150 divided by 5 is going to be 30. So it's going to be 30 km over 1 hour, which is 30 kilometers an hour. Hooray, that's what we just found. So again, this is just showing you it's the same thing. All right, so my orange car is going 30 kilometers an hour. My blue car is traveling 40 kilometers an hour, which is faster. Well, obviously, this is the faster car because in 1 hour, I travel 40 kilometers as opposed to the orange car in which I'm only traveling 30 kilometers an hour. So I'm traveling 10 k's more. So this is faster. All right, hopefully that made perfect sense. Let's now review what we've learned in this topic, or this video rather. We have gone through ratio and rates. Our learning objectives were to know the meaning of the terms rates and ratios. I think we've done that. And we also need to know how to simplify rates and ratios as well. We've done that as well. And we've also finished it off by learning about unit rates. We didn't write that as an objective. Oh no. We also learned about unit rates. And that's going to be really, really important for our next lesson, because in our next lesson, we're going to be talking about best buys, which is super duper important for when you go to the shops. I will see you then.